Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Is your inland intermodal freight at risk? Well, we're going to answer that today. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain Blended podcast, as well as the Blended Pledge. And I'm so excited to be collaborating once again with my friends over at CargoWise Landside. We've produced so much great content together over the last few years, including podcast episodes, webinars, lives, just like this one. So go check them out if you missed any of them. But right now, I'm ready for another great discussion. Now, today's live will look a little bit different. We're breaking things down into 3 parts. So first, you're going to hear a presentation from our guests. Then I'm going to get back involved and we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion. And finally, we're going to round out the session with a bit of a Q&A. So please do send us all your questions as they come up and we'll get into as many as we can. So today we're talking about one of the most rapidly rising problems in our industry, and that is cargo theft. It impacts so many businesses, proven by the fact that it's a $35 billion crisis. But don't panic, because I have 2 professionals with me today that might just be able to help. Bobby and Chris, welcome to the show. Now, before you dive into the presentation, can you each introduce yourselves and give us an overview of SecureSpace and Bloom Global, who are integral parts of CargoWise Landside, the solution area?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, Sarah, thank you as always for having us. We thoroughly enjoy being with you and your wonderful team. My name is Bobby Strank. I'm the Senior Director of Marketplace for SecureSpace. SecureSpace is a storage management tool as part of CargoWise Landside. In essence, we are an on-demand marketplace for container, trailer, and truck parking and storage. You're able to easily search and book daily and monthly parking where and when needed.
Thanks, Bobby. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Haas. I just want to say thanks to Sarah as well. I'm with Bloom Global. I'm a business development executive focused on railroads. As far as Bloom Global is concerned, it's a supply chain technology provider that offers end-to-end visibility, logistics execution, and data-driven solutions to optimize supply chain operations. The platform helps businesses manage everything from asset management, sourcing and supplier management, all the way to multimodal transportation and financial settlement.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Chris. Let's go ahead and get the presentation started. All right. So cargo theft. Huge issue. We've seen a lot of industry stakeholders try to tackle it head on. Unfortunately, it's an epidemic that really continues to proliferate our industry, and these criminals are not discriminating. The impact is already exorbitant, totaling $35 billion in economic loss. And unfortunately, this may be just the tip of the iceberg as criminals become more sophisticated. They're innovating. This is not your old-fashioned thief. These are really highly sophisticated crime rings. And I want to take note that there are 2 different types of cargo theft. First is strategic cargo theft, and it's more of an innovative approach, if you will. It involves identity theft, GPS jammers, and fictitious pickups. Now, straight theft is more of what you may visualize when you think of some type of robbery, right? A forceful entry. And it involves the physical abduction of freight from truck stops, drop yards, and terminals. And for an industry that's just on the onset of adopting next generation technologies, criminals are able to identify and target specific modes of transport and different nodes of the supply chain, and even down to the organization level, who have areas of weakness technologically or physically, infrastructure-wise. So unsecured parking continues to have the highest theft rate out of industrial outdoor storage asset class. So the industrial outdoor storage asset class includes drop yards and overnight truck parking facilities, and can even include warehouses. So unsecured parking, it really lacks fencing, gate infrastructure, and other common protective procedures. Visibility continues to be a huge hurdle in the industry, and unsophisticated gate technology supporting processes leaves gaps in driver and visitor validation. So while the industry continues to struggle to implement new standards, the success of criminals, unfortunately, continues to amplify.
When we think about cargo theft, it's more than just lost freight. Think of financial fallout and 3 items within that, right? Rising insurance premiums, operational disruptions and delays, and costs of investigation and recovery. Every theft contributes to higher risk profile, leading to increased costs for all businesses involved in shipping. Stolen cargo means missed deadlines, disrupted supply chains, and the need to reorder and reship. This can lead to significant overtime, expedited shipping costs, and inefficient use of resources. Businesses often incur additional expenses for internal investigations, security enhancements, and attempts to recover the stolen goods. But also consider the intangible damage, reputational damage, strained customer relationships, loss of future business. When cargo is stolen, it can erode trust with customers and partners. It raises questions about security of your operations and your ability to deliver. Delayed or lost shipments directly impact customer satisfaction. This can lead to lost business, negative reviews, and a damaged brand image. A history of cargo theft can make it difficult to attract new clients or retain existing ones, as businesses may seek to find more reliable partners. Shippers of high value freight that have been victim to cargo theft may be inclined to find another mode than what you might be in business with. So let's look at a couple of areas and basically where this happens, how it happens, and what is being targeted. So we can see that warehousing, truck stops, as Bobby had already mentioned, are high risk areas of where these are happening. And it's important to recognize the power of this data that's out there when it comes to warehouses and distribution centers, increasing security measures, enhanced surveillance, access to control, and personal screening, very important. Implementing secure parking policies for truck drivers, encouraging vetted drivers and vetted lots, right? Secure lots rather than unsecured parking. And then prioritizing risk assessment and mitigation strategies for these specific locations. When we look at what's being targeted, these top 3, some might not come as a surprise: food and drinks, electronics, clothing, and shoes. This information is vital. If you're a shipper that's moving this type of freight, think of implementing more robust security protocols, GPS tracking, enhanced seals, and secure transportation methods. Companies can get better visibility into the movement of specific goods and identify potential weak points. I think in essence, where data is available for businesses to move beyond generic security measures and implement targeted, data-driven strategies to mitigate cargo theft. This is the area where you can find potential ability to reduce those losses and improve supply chain resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the playbook of criminals, because it really is dynamic and ever evolving. And I continue to say the word sophistication, but it is becoming more complex. And the reasoning behind this ever evolving playbook is they're finding ways to continue to evade being caught and prosecuted. And in a weird way, these crime organizations really are at the forefront of innovation to try to circumvent the law, so to speak. So I want everyone to imagine a warehousing operation. It's complex. There's a lot of moving pieces. from the yard to inside the storage and fulfillment areas, and even the admin offices. And in absence of sufficient infrastructure and really rigorous processes and controls, managing the operation is no doubt challenging, and it can really accentuate gaps for criminals. So let's talk about the infrastructure. If the facility lacks a fence, perimeter fencing around the entire facility, or a gate at the points of entry and exit, it really eliminates a major barrier for criminals, and it makes it easy, or dare I say welcoming, for cargo thieves to exploit. And without any type of barrier, containers, trailers, trucks can easily be broken into, seals can be tampered with, or even have an entire piece of equipment, a loaded container, a loaded trailer, disappear without anyone being aware, real time. So now, specifically to the gate, the absence of a gate, especially a gate that does not have any type of driver or visitor validation, or maybe even interchange reporting. So what's coming in, what's coming out. And this, again, removes additional friction that could normally be a deterrent for a cargo thief. Criminals are going to present fake IDs, forged documents, and we've even heard of them posing as legitimate employees of the facility in order to gain access and try to get approval to remove that piece of loaded equipment, have some type of fictitious reason as to why they should be on the yard tampering with their client's freight, quote on client. And finally, there's clouded visibility at the gate. And this is really inhibiting the yard operator from knowing what equipment is coming in and out of the facility. But again, also, where might that specific piece of equipment be on the yard? Without the ability to validate what trailer or container is dwelling in a certain spot, how long it has been there, whether it's been moved, it's just further exposure for the facility not to have like a holistic view of the activity that's going on at the yard. So CargoWise Landside has formulated a self-scoring tool to really calculate the rigor of your security and readiness to respond to threats. We've taken a lot of insight speaking with all of our suppliers on the marketplace to really understand and learn what that next generation industrial outdoor storage facility, again, that's drop yards, truck stops, warehouses, what that's going to look like in the future. So we'll distribute this tool at the conclusion of the call. But in short, there are really three primary categories that should be reviewed to analyze the security and level of deterrence of your facility. So the first is infrastructure. Ask, is access gated? Is it controlled? Is there CCTV throughout the entire property so you can have a bird's eye view of what's going on? Who's coming in, who's going out, any suspicious activity. And the second is operational processes throughout the facility. So again, consider, what does the process look like for equipment that's checking into the yard? What data is being collected? At the outgate, are there any type of release numbers? What credentials are required for a driver or a visitor to enter the facility? And then for technology readiness, is there some type of license plate reader? How can we infuse IoT devices for live tracking of where equipment lies? And again, with the emergence of AI, where can we leverage that technology to detect threats? All right, so Mitigating and really eradicating. That's what we want to do. We want to try to get rid of cargo theft, bury the epidemic. It's going to require a robust and diverse approach, really based on the mode of transport and the journey through the supply chain. So let's break it down into cargo at rest and cargo in transit. So to mitigate the risk of cargo while it is at rest, there's a few things that tenants and operators need to establish. First and foremost, some type of controlled yard access through credential validation for drivers and visitors. Everyone who enters a facility where freight is being stored should have a valid reason as to why they're there. And they must be willing to provide information as to who they are and possibly who they work for. If someone's not willing to provide that, then again, it has to raise some type of red flags. There needs to be full perimeter fencing. I'm talking about the full perimeter. We've heard sometimes, well, my facility backs up to a wooded lot. No one's going to traverse through there. You'd be surprised. There cannot be vegetation on any of this perimeter fencing. The gate must remain closed at all times. The only time a gate should be opening is when a driver or someone is trying to come into the yard after they have been validated. Motion sensor lighting at night, wall-to-wall CCTV, and even these fences, these smart fences that can detect when breaches occur. So think of someone trying to use wire cutters to open a fence. And talking about visibility, trying to establish stall level visibility. It's an emerging trend, and it's allowing yard operators and tenants to have real-time visibility to not only what equipment is dwelling within the yard real time, but also where it is located in the facility. So it's not only a efficiency play. Drivers know exactly what stall they should go to when they enter the facility without driving around, essentially wasting time. But they can know and have confidence that that piece of equipment has not moved since it was checked in. So, concluding cargo at rest, we like to say cargo at rest is cargo at risk. And by considering some of these remediation and eradication strategies will help put your facility in the right position to mitigate the risk of theft.
So true, Bobby. Specific to cargo in transit, think of real-time tracking and location. Immediate visibility is crucial for responding quickly to deviations. And as we get more granular, geofencing and alerts. If a shipment were to deviate from its planned route or enters or exits an unauthorized area, a system that can trigger instant alerts, say via email, text, app notifications, or into a UI. This type of proactive alerting allows for immediate investigation or intervention, potentially catching a thief in progress, which is ideal, but also recovering stolen goods quickly. Also condition monitoring. For instance, an alert for an unexpected door opening while a truck or containers in transit. This can signal potential pilferage attempt. And then finally, being able to take and analyze this information where there's trends of things. We'll get more into that in a little while, but using that data and reporting that IoT hardware and use of software that can reveal patterns of theft occurrences, high-risk routes, or vulnerable points in the supply chain.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So when your freight needs to dwell in a secure industrial outdoor storage yard or have greater visibility during transit through IoT intelligence, CargoWise Landside can bridge these gaps in landside freight security. So let's talk about secure space. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are a marketplace where shippers, 3PLs, motor carriers, drivers can book parking and storage with confidence when searching for solutions on the marketplace, because it features over 400 vetted, fully secure facilities. Industrial outdoor storage has really evolved from traditional unsecured drop yards and truck stops. And Secure Space has worked really hard in fortifying our network with next generation solutions. Now, on the yard operations side, yard operators can augment really their facility through implementing our proprietary gate management system. And our gate management system is a cloud-based inventory reporting system that provides both facility operators and tenants with real-time inventory reporting. Now, I mentioned a lot about driver validation. The gate management system offers this too. So security guards, gate clerks, anyone who is operating a gate has confidence that when they are letting someone in or out of the facility, they have a valid reason to be there.
And then when we think about Bloom's IoT platform gives you real-time visibility into your road and rail cargo, from its location and movement to its statuses. It not only boosts traceability and accountability, but it also allows for proactive problem solving through geofencing and custom alerts. The result is faster incident response, fewer disruptions, and less cargo loss. Plus, it seamlessly integrates with your existing YMS or TMS systems, providing complete end-to-end security and visibility across the entire landside supply chain.
So, kind of in summary, CargoWise Landside offers a suite of solutions that addresses the risk of theft for cargo at rest and cargo in transit. Secure Space, we provide those who are moving freight with a secure facility to dwell in. Again, whether it be a driver, motor carrier, 3PL, or a shipper, all of the solutions on our network offer flexible terms, daily or monthly, ability to increase, downsize the size of your spatial allotment as needed. And again, all facilities are audited, fully secure, and meet our minimum standards. And for the yard operators, we have a suite of solutions to ensure that, number one, your facility is staying safe, and number two, you're able to really distinguish yourself against some of the competition, other yard operators who are not adopting new technologies and evolving their facilities to meet the evolving needs of tenants who move freight.
And on the Bloom side, its IoT capabilities empower stakeholders with real-time insights into location, condition, and movement of cargo, which enables better visibility into freight in transit. Real-time access to cargo in transit can assist providers and customers in the mitigation and prevention of theft incidents. Rule-based alerting allows for configuration to events in accordance with specific business needs. These visibility and data-driven insights can lend to more informed decision-making and establish preventative measures.
So get your questions ready because we are almost about to answer them. In closing, as cargo theft continues to grow and evolve, really the industry needs to come together. We need to implement innovative solutions that can create a real impact, truly solve the problem. CargoWise Landside provides the cohesive security fabric necessary to reverse the trend. And together, Bloom and Secure Space provide a comprehensive suite of solutions, all designed to keep our clients' freight safely moving through the supply chain, from port of entry to its final destination.
All right. That was great. Thank you, Bobby and Chris. And I want to say that we have an ebook for everybody who is in the audience today. We're going to be putting that link in the comments. And because you presented so much great information, I picked up on a couple. I like the use of the word sophistication. Which is so true. And it does a really great job of really putting it into perspective as to how sophisticated these folks are and what they're doing and the lengths that they're going to as well. But also it made me think about how much there is to manage. And we need an ebook that sort of covers everything that you talked about today, plus more, to be able to help the supply chain leaders and teams and professionals to be able to manage that. But most importantly, we've had some fire emojis from the audience today. So everybody has been loving the information. So let's get into the panel discussion and part of our episode today, because I love a good story, and I think you guys are really going to be able to provide some examples, sort of like a true crime podcast over here. So, Chris, I'm going to start with you. Can you give us some examples of some of the real world heists? I mean, what was the theft? Maybe break a few stories down for us.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, some of these we see on the news even, right? One that I point to that's relatively recent from October of last year was a train theft in Chicago. It was actually captured via helicopter on the news. You could actually see the theft happening live, right? And some of the people that were interviewed about it talked of televisions, tires, all sorts of consumer goods being removed from containers. And, yes, sophistication is involved here, but sometimes it's not either, right? Where opportunity is seen and taken advantage of. Some of the reports were people talking about backing box trucks up near the rail side and just loading the freight right from the container into a small cargo truck. So these are not only crimes of sophistication, but crimes of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is opportunity from what you've really talked about if they're not securing their space and everything around where we're moving the cargo. And one of the things that you both talked about that sort of really came to mind is the capital costs in all of this is huge. There's delays.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much work that needs to be done to be able to get the products back into the supply chain and make sure that we're meeting customer demand, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all unnecessary to a certain point if we're making sure that we're doing the right things to stop that. So for everybody in the audience, make sure you put your questions in the comments because we want to get to those. Now, Bobby, I think you have an example of an iOS. And just for everybody in the audience, what's an iOS? I don't know if you said that before, but just if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, yes. iOS is industrial outdoor storage. It is not the iOS on your iPhone. So industrial outdoor storage, it's comprised of drop yards, truck terminals, warehouses, any type of parking facility. That terminology has really come within the last several years as, industry stakeholders from supply chain logistics, in other areas of like investors became interested in this space. So, I mean, we could spend hours and hours telling stories about different ways that.
Can we please? Because I think they might be, this might be a true crime podcast in the making. Just saying.
I think that's a brilliant idea, and I'm all for that. So I guess just to give one, this is the big foreshadow to the future show. Recently in Los Angeles, there was a group of criminals who really understood when a facility's shift changes were occurring. So they spent weeks, not sure if they were hiding in the bushes or driving around the facility at all hours of the day, trying to pinpoint, when were shift changes occurring. So they found a vulnerability, of course, at night. And right at the time when the outgoing clerks were, providing notes of what the incoming clerk should be paying attention to or completing, this group of criminals, they were able to break into the yard, and they actually took a grinder, right? Like a metal grinder, a fabricator, and they cut open a side of a container, and they removed high value freight and escaped in their vehicle.
Wow.
They were not captured either. So again, that's just like one of thousands of examples of the length. You said it yourself, Sarah, the length and the aggression that these people are, doing in order to get their hands on other people's products, other people's assets.
Yeah. Well, and it's bold, right? But I think also it puts, some of our team members who are in the yard at risk as well, because you don't know what lengths that they will go to be able to get some of that cargo too. So there's a human element in here as well that we really want to make sure that the people within our industry are safe and secure, because it's really the people that makes this go around. So what do you think that we can learn from these examples? Like, what can we take back to our own organizations? Bobby, we'll start with Bobby and go to Chris.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, there's no entity that's immune from cargo theft. Criminals are really a despicable type of creative. But when there's a will, there is a way. And, fortunately, new technologies combined with just good old fashioned vigilance, or even policing, so to speak, by freight security, yard operations, carrier vetting teams, can really overcome the battle that thieves are trying to wage on our industry.
What about you, Chris?
Great point, Bobby. It gets much deeper than what I'm going to say here, but in general, utilizing IoT capabilities, the hardware for containers or assets in transit, and the alert systems that software can provide, designed to pinpoint theft events at time of occurrence. We're not talking about finding dunnage and product sitting somewhere rail side or on the street. We're talking about being able to identify as it's happening, right? And recognition of theft events in real time, to not only when it's happened, but also the location, can assist in the investigation, whether that's criminal or insurance related. But it also allows for some proactive measures to be implemented too, which I'll talk about in a little while. But when we think about improving infrastructure, Bobby mentioned fencing around facilities, but that also can be done within, areas of transit, specifically the railroads, right? And those things are being implemented as we speak.
Well, and talk to us a little bit more about how some of the best of breed ways companies are addressing cargo theft. Chris, I think you want to talk a little bit about heat maps. I don't know too much about those. What are they? How do they work? How are companies using them for security enhancement? But before you do that, I do want to give a shout out to Michael over on my personal LinkedIn. I see your question. We're going to get to that a little bit later. All right, over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Sarah. Heat maps are used in all sorts of data analytics, but when we talk specifically around cargo theft, a heat map is really a two-dimensional or spatial view that can be utilized to identify the density of theft occurrences. Think of events plotted on a map. How frequent are those happening in given areas? And the heat map really reflects variation in color or hue to the intensity or density of those theft occurrences. And the ways companies are using heat maps is really to identify those pressure points in their network where these theft events are occurring really most often, most frequently. What this may lead them to do is really make more informed decisions around how to deploy security measures, whether that's law enforcement, whether that's cameras, monitoring, or as I stated, how to improve infrastructure to deter theft. If I have a 6-foot fence, do I need an 8-foot fence with barbed wire? Right? Those kind of things.
Well, and probably the material of the fence,
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
tracking device. Like there's so many different ways that you can go and things to think about to protect the cargo, especially high value cargo as well. So Bobby, can you talk a little bit about the role that more rigorous carrier vetting can play in enhancing security? I mean, you're right. I mean, if people are bringing their own IDs or taking somebody else's ID, how do you know, and how do you empower your teams to be able to figure that out?
Yeah, well, let's first start off with why is carrier vetting necessary? And I think it goes back to one of the attributes that makes our sector so unique. And that's the low barrier to entry that's really required to be an active market participant. So we see so many aspiring entrepreneurs who can easily set up their own trucking company. And it's a lot easier to start a trucking company and be successful, I'd argue, than pursuing some type of software business or capital intensive venture. So this ease of market participation has really enabled hundreds of thousands of carriers to partake in the expansive transportation ecosystem. Albeit, it's that same fragmented nature of the space that makes it conducive for criminals to really hide in the shadows of valid, trustworthy carriers. And one bad apple has the potential to ruin the whole bushel. So shippers, freight forwarders, 3PLs, and brokers, they have to have a robust multi-point digital vetting system that can really quickly review DOT reports, double brokering alerts, safety and security violations. But then it also gets down to just being intentional, patient, and proactive in finding the right carrier partners, and emphasis on partners. So even if it means extending the time frame to distribute or allocate freight on different lanes, it's going to significantly reduce the risk of fraud and stolen cargo in the long run. So it goes beyond the digital vetting tools. Look to establish mutually beneficial, fortified carrier partners that really demonstrate a proven track record of security compliance and operational excellence. So will rates be slightly more expensive? Yeah, maybe. But you really have to consider the tangible and intangible costs that will incur if freight is allocated to an unvetted carrier and a load ends up being stolen.
Well, and this is kind of where collaboration comes into play, but also when you're looking to partner with new vendors, right? These are the types of questions that you want to be asking those vendors to make sure that they have it covered, or at least they're thinking about it the same way that you are. And maybe they have a plan in place. And so what is that plan? Where do we fit into that plan? What does that look like for us?
Absolutely.
Right. Susan, I see your question. Jessica, I see your question. We are going to get to your questions in just a few minutes. And remember to put a fire emoji if you're loving the conversation, because we want to hear from you. All right. What about milestone to milestone misalignment alerts? If you're not sure, I've heard that, I'm not sure I've heard that specific term before. You guys are bringing all the new terms for me today. What does that mean, and how is it addressing cargo theft? Chris?
Sure. So milestone to milestone misalignment alerts are notifications that flag a shipment's timeline or checkpoints if they're off track, right? So they tell you when these key milestones are not being met or might deviate throughout transit. I think a good example would be if I were to create a virtual network of geofences everywhere that I'm shipping, or points that I have drivers going into or out of, and then associating alerts to those geofences. If I recognize that a movement should be going from one geofence to another, and all of a sudden I recognize that it's deviated from that path, all of a sudden I have that misalignment, that milestone to milestone misalignment that really is the definition there, right? So if you establish alerts based on your business configurations, you can take more immediate action and mitigate those instances better.
Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to choose what you want to do in that moment, rather than doing it later on down the road and having to try to find everything, or the customer or yourself having to remanufacture.
Yeah, I mean, it's an area where you have to be proactive, right? This isn't something that's just going to apply without effort up front, but it certainly can help mitigate those going forward.
Yeah. Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, Chris did a perfect job explaining it. Geofencing around like approved, fully vetted, secure parking and storage facilities will ensure that drivers are parking in the right places and are not stopping at any type of temporary location for a short amount of time that wasn't reported to the dispatch team or client, or dropping a load off at a unapproved, unsecure facility. Again, we're seeing a lot of our customers working with us to develop a set list of approved locations. They might not always need space, but when one of their drivers has a need temporarily, or even for an agent carrier who is looking to, book long-term space, it needs to be one of those approved facilities. And leveraging geofencing ensures that they're actually going to these approved locations and not deviating to a something where freight should not be stored.
This is a prime example of what keeps supply chain professionals up at night.
Yeah.
I ask this question all the time, and they've never really talked about this part of it, but I can only imagine that this must keep so many professionals up at night. And so I'm so glad that we're having this conversation and really providing examples and different ways to think about it and what you need to manage and how it's manageable and how you can de-risk, and maybe get some better sleep. I mean, I'm just saying. But I want to talk to you about how Secure Space and Bloom are sort of leading the way in the space. And I want to talk about your best practice examples. How your customers are improving security with your solutions. And let's do it case study style, because I do this on the podcast. I love for the guest to always sort of paint a picture. What was the challenge that they came to you with? What was the solution you provided? What was the ROI and benefit that they saw? So, Bobby, I want to start with you on Secure Space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned that brief example before. However, we're really fortunate to work with thousands of drivers, motor carriers, and 3PLs, shippers that have been extremely attentive to the risk of cargo theft and have entrusted in Secure Space and helping them solve it or mitigate it. So we had one of our large 3PL buyers, one of our clients who has a need for space. They're a top 25 3PL in the United States, and they work with the largest retailers in the world. One of their retailers came to them with a extremely stringent yard requirement sheet. And this was for a project where yard storage was needed across 7 markets in the United States. Well, this 3PL didn't know where to begin, right? It was going to take a lot of shoe leather, time and market, and a lot of just good old-fashioned direct sales to try to figure out where do they even start? Their client needs a solution. I'm not sure, and I don't have a comfort providing or doing the work myself to try to find a facility. So they came to our team, and because our network is comprised of audited, fully secure locations that meet our compliance standards, they were able to entrust in us in curating a list of solutions in all 7 markets for one of their largest clients. And the size of these projects were quite material. We're talking about 500 spaces on a long-term basis. So through leveraging the Secure Space marketplace, they were able to win the project and have retained it for several years. And I'm very proud to say that we have not had one breach. There's been no cargo thefts that have taken place, and we certainly do not plan on having any breaches because we're continually evolving. Our suppliers are continually evolving their SOPs to stay at that forefront. Again, ensuring that all of our customers' freight remains safe when they book space at their facility. Now, let's talk about our suppliers, because we are a two-sided marketplace. We're constantly in touch with them to discuss how they can leverage our suite of gate management products to ensure that there is that driver validation that needs to take place at the time of check-in and check-out, and also providing that visibility to who and what is coming in and out of the yard. Now, further, we really have a acute pulse on where parking and storage tenants' mandates are headed. So what are they looking for right now? What are they going to be looking for 6 months from now? Because again, these standards are ever evolving, which is a good thing. So our team proactively advises our suppliers on these actionable insights, and we recommend specific yard enhancement projects that will ultimately make their facility more secure and compliant with these evolving requirements, which again just distinguishes their facility against the other competition. So we're really building the industrial outdoor storage IOS network of the future, on demand, flexible, cost effective, and of course, most importantly, secure, because it's in our name.
Well, and I'm going to ask you to get out that crystal ball in just a little bit, but I want to get to Chris's story around rail, and then I want to get to the audience questions. So if you're in the audience and you have a question, now's the time to put it in the comments so that we can get to those in just a few minutes. Chris, give us your example for on the rail side.
Sure. So I alluded to it a little while ago, Sarah, but first, when we think about railroad networks, they're very large. They're extremely challenging to police and monitor. And of course, in more densely populated areas, that's where we're incurring the theft for the most part. But what railroads are looking into and what they've started to do is to implement these heat maps that I talked about earlier, and then pair those with geofencing and be able to have a better idea around where these incidents are happening and truly go out and apply capital to improving infrastructure, whether that's building new infrastructure, whether that's improving upon what's already there. But the example that I used before, if it's not fenced, let's build a fence. If it needs a 12-foot brick wall, then should we consider putting that in place? And we really have some amazing partners in the railroads that have a lot of green light thinking, and how can we utilize what they've invested in through IoT to implement that and bring those alerts to the forefront, not only for the rails themselves, but for the stakeholders as well. So I think based on this conversation, that heat map and being able to identify those high risk areas is really kind of at the forefront of this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now we're going to get to some audience questions, and then I'm going to come back to you guys about your crystal ball and the future of cargo theft. I'm going to start with Susan. So she asks, what is the difference between IoT and regular milestone visibility? Bobby, it looks like you want to take that one.
I can take this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, IoT is really, it's two pieces, right? One, the hardware. It's a hardware that's actually installed on an asset, whether that be a container, which is mostly what we're talking about here, but it's really evolving into more, it can go on chassis, it can be maintenance driven. But when we think about IoT and what it's doing in comparison to visibility, IoT is really a physical unit on one-to-one given asset, and produces not only GPS location, but various statuses of that container. Could be door open or door closed. It could be whether that container is empty or loaded, all the way through to monitoring reefer freight, right? So temp controlled instances, things like that. So the difference really is you're much more granular, and it can draw much more information from IoT devices than that of milestone visibility. That's a lot of aggregation of data, points on a map that have existed for some time now to generate visibility. IoT and the GPS associated with that is not only giving container location, but also the event status of each particular container. And I think why that's important in cargo theft is you can identify exactly where this is happening and be alerted to the events like a door open of that container when it should not have been opened. That's the best way to put that.
Awesome. Great question. Now I'm going to go over to Michael, and I think we've kind of answered this one, but maybe Bobby, if you just want to point them out. What solutions are in place to address this theft problem?
Yeah. Well, from the yard storage side, yard storage, warehousing, it gets down to infrastructure. So ensuring that you have perimeter fencing, rigorous gate operation systems and controls to ensure you know exactly who's coming in and who's coming out. And, frankly, if you're in a high risk area, consider doubling down on your security and adding more human resources just to have more eyes on the yard. And again, it's an additional deterrent. So you combine that human capital element with robust processes and infrastructure. And then on the technology side, specific to, yard or warehouse operations, you need to have a digital system in place at the gate. Not having any type of validation system, that means that the gate clerk is going to have to make a subjective decision on whether or not someone should be entering or exiting the facility. And we have to keep in mind that these criminals are creative, they are sophisticated, they are going to use deceptive techniques to try to, wiggle their way in through the facility. And wiggle might be a soft word because they could, again, forcefully enter. But you just have to take the subjectivity out of it. And by having a digital system with, approved drivers, release numbers, booking numbers, the gate clerks are able to make a objective decision on whether or not that person who's trying to take a container out of the yard or bring something in has a valid reason.
But also a data-driven decision.
Yes, correct.
Right? And I want to let Michael know we are going to update my personal LinkedIn with the link to the ebook. And so I highly recommend, to answer that question, that you go and download that ebook as well, because I think it's going to answer a lot of that question too. All right. We've got a question from Jessica. How can parking and storage procurement adapt to changing security requirements? Who's this for, Bobby?
Yeah, I'll take this one as well. So, Sarah, you mentioned it earlier. I think you said that I can only imagine the new requirements and the different lists that have to be checked in order for someone to move forward with with obtaining parking, storage, or even warehousing. And one thing I didn't mention in my case study was when we first received the requirements, the yard requirements that this client mandated, it was like a dictionary. It was extremely thick. And I remember reading through it. And I said, okay, well, they're either looking for Fort Knox or Area 51, like the most secure facilities in the world. I don't know.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Right? But I was flabbergasted, speechless, and I'm not usually speechless. Fortunately, again, we have some fantastic suppliers at Secure Space who are willing to augment and invest into their operations in order to accommodate the project. But this is going to continue to be standard. When we're talking with our buyers who previously, well, frankly, they didn't necessarily have intention behind the type of facility they were booking. The only thing they were looking for was, okay, I need to be as close to the rail hub as possible or as close to the port as possible. Now you add that additional layer to it, right? Okay, well, we actually do need to ensure that it's fully secured. And I think we're just going to continue to add more and more subsequent layers just to, again, remove any type of gaps or lapse that may result in freight being stored in an unsecured location. So that's where, when one of our buyers are working with us, hit us hard with these requirements, because I'm very confident that our team will pull through and our supplier network will pull through.
All right. Well, we are almost at the end of this discussion. I really don't want it to be over. I'd like to hear more stories, and maybe we need to do a part 2. But because we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to put you both on the spot and ask you both to get your crystal ball out. So, Bobby, what's one thing that you think the future of cargo theft looks like? And then, Chris, what about cargo theft security? Just one thing. We probably only have enough time for that.
Okay. All right. I'll make this brief. I'm going to level set. Cargo theft is going to continue to be an issue. It is going to continue to evolve and impact our industry in the medium term. However, we have to recognize the progress, and there is adoption of new technologies, and capital is being invested. So I think that while we're still in the early innings, or one of the first holes for my golfing friends, we're moving pretty quickly. It's going to be a fast round. And within the next few years, I think that many of these new technologies, many infrastructure projects and operational enhancements are going to take place, to where now we have the upper hand over these crime rings.
All right, Chris, one thing.
Yeah, I think, it's going to continue, as far as security is concerned, to become more granular, right? Potentially moving from container or asset level IoT maybe down in it. And this has already happened in some cases, but devices, whether that's RFID or IoT at the product or commodity level, to monitor exactly where the product might be. Cost barriers might be lessened to those sort of things over the next few years. And I've already kind of done so. But as Bobby had mentioned, violators and those cargo thieves, they're going to continue to evolve in their processes as well. So it's really about being diligent and informed, and having an eye on continued investment in technology.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that's all the time we have for. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Remember, before you leave, head to the comments and grab the link so that you can grab your copy of the ebook on this topic, because it comes with so many more insights, plus some of the information that Bobby and Chris shared today. And so a big thank you to Bobby and Chris for joining us and for sharing your insights into the huge issue of cargo theft and what SecureSpace and Bloom are doing to fight back. Those case studies were really powerful and prove that what can be achieved with problem-solving approaches, the right technology, and the right partner. So if you're looking for a partner to help you mitigate landside cargo theft with improved operational processes, enhanced security infrastructure, and key technology investments, head over to cargowise.com/landside today. That's it for me, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, and I can't wait to see you all again soon.